Today's video is going to be a bit different. Usually after earnings, I can quickly pull out what's new, what's signal, and put something together and have a pretty good expectation of where we're headed going forward. This time around, that is not the case. And I'll just be fully transparent here. I feel mentally paralyzed to some degree at the moment. So my plan for today is to just touch on a few things, say what I think needs to be said, and then hopefully in the coming days I can gather my thoughts a bit more. And before I get into it, just a few examples of what I mean here. So many people are saying Tesla beat expectations, so it was a great earnings release. Okay, but ultimately beat what? It's just those analyst expectations, which for years we've largely been writing off as having any value to truly understanding Tesla as a company. But now, because people want to say something positive about Tesla, they'll say, oh look, they beat those arbitrary expectations, so all is well. And yes, there were certainly some very encouraging metrics that I can touch on, but at the end of the day, very clearly the focus for Tesla has been on one thing and one thing only, and that is robo-taxi expansion. And from that standpoint, the commentary on the call was not good for this year. There's absolutely no way around it. Now, can you make the argument Elon is sandbagging here? Plenty of people are pointing to the SpaceX merger and Tesla's valuation needing to stay low to make that easier. And listen, if you want to make that argument, be my guest. I personally don't think Elon would delay expanding its own robotaxi business just because of a potential merger that I don't think is going to happen anytime in the next 12 months anyway. Now, at some point, I think it's likely, but to believe that Elon is going to delay the robotaxi rollout just because of that merger and to do so for maybe a year plus, personally, I'm not buying it. And I've seen plenty of people say Elon was tired. He sounded like he was checked out on the call. Personally, that wasn't my takeaway. I think we have to remember the man is human, even though it seems like he's an alien most of the time. He has off days. If you've ever worked on any project yourself, I'm sure you have some days where you feel very confident, you believe it's going to work, and you're excited about the future. Then on other days, it feels like nothing's working and it's never going to work, and you just want to throw up your hands and give up. And I'm not saying either of those extremes are the case here. I'm just saying Elon's going to have off days, so maybe on the call he had a more pessimistic, downtrodden day. But truly, as I've been saying all along, I'm actually good with that. I would rather have the expectations come down and be more rooted in reality than have them set so high, unattainably high, and then all these Tesla investors become disillusioned. So it might be a painful reset right now as we reset our expectations for what 2026 will be, but this is all part of my problem right now is I'm actually struggling to figure out what the proper expectations are for this year. And truly, for me personally, I think I might just remove all expectations and let things develop as they will. I really do want to enjoy this season. I want to continually cover the company that I enjoy and continue to learn about all of this new frontier technology that Tesla is pushing forward. But I will say, good day or bad day for Elon on the call, it would be nice to have more continuity for these expectations. One call you get Elon saying 50% of the US will be covered by robotaxi, and then fast forward a few weeks later and it's, well, we're actually going to take this slower because we're waiting for version 15. And yes, obviously Tesla can still scale with version 14, and it sounds like they will, but to get to any actual scale, needle moving scale, it sounds like Tesla itself is now saying we're waiting for V15. And so ultimately, that's the problem, is that what Tesla is doing has never been done before, and trying to predict these timelines, as Elon said, is basically impossible. But I really don't want to keep rambling here, so here's a quick opportunity to support the channel, and then we'll get into it. I have to come clean. I have been converted. 3W is the sponsor of this video now, but we've had these 3W mats in Ashley's Model Y all winter, testing them, cleaning them, and they passed with flying colors, so it was time for me to install some in my Model 3. I have tested a bunch of different brands in just the past few years, and without question, 3W is our favorite right now. They have this full metal heel plate, which is designed with what they call their Vigor Mold tech, and it's for extra durability. It's made from aluminum alloy. And this goes far beyond just aesthetics. We've had zero edge lifting or deformation so far. And these mats have now proven to be super wear resistant even through our winters, which are some of the harshest in the country. Cleaning these mats is much easier than some other brands that I've tried that I won't name, meaning you can restore these to like new no matter how dirty they get. They have zero odor, and that's thanks to their Thorex eco-friendly material that's 100% non-toxic, baby and pet safe, waterproof, and ultra durable. And maybe most important of all, these mats really don't move at all in my experience. They do have those anti-slip studs on the back. The mats fit incredibly well, and they do have those high edge guards to keep water and pebbles off your carpet floors. And not only is the full coverage nice, but I happen to really enjoy the look of these as well. N3W uses at least 50% recycled material, so I think Tesla would approve of that, and I do think these mats are excellent for any and all conditions. So if you'd like to protect your Teslas and support the channel, you can use my links below to get 33% off 3W's website or $30 off on Amazon with my code 3WDillon. And even if you don't need mats right now, just bookmark the link for when that time comes. I'm just going to go thought by thought here in no particular order. Jeff Lutz said the number one missing fact from all the Tesla hating commentary this evening is that we exited Q1 with the largest backlog of auto orders in our history. But that's not actually accurate. What Vaibhav actually said was on the auto backlog front, we ended the quarter with the highest Q1 order backlog in over 2 years. So it seems like Vaibhav was saying the Q1 backlog was better than 2025 and 2024, but that's it. It's not the best in Tesla's entire history. And based on how Vaibhav phrased it, it seemed like he's only comparing to other Q1s. But more importantly, as always, the context is king here. On one hand, we have all of those orders for the lower priced Cybertruck. So how many of those are making up for this backlog? And further, I don't know if they're including this in what they said, but we know Tesla had plenty of vehicles that were produced in Q1 that just didn't make it to the end customer yet, so they were not counted as deliveries. But again, because now so much of the focus is already on autonomy and Optimus, given Tesla's valuation, even if they increase deliveries by 10-20% year over year, I just don't think it's going to be a massive needle mover. But on vehicle deliveries, another thing, Andre Thierry, great day for Giga Berlin. They're increasing Model Y production by about 20% starting July this year. They're also hiring about 1,000 new employees starting in May, and they're converting 500 temporary employees to be permanent. That follows a record Q1 where they built more than 61,000 Model Ys at Giga Berlin. Which, okay, on the surface, that's awesome. You love to see it. But again, let's contextualize this. On the slide deck, Giga Berlin has an installed capacity over 375,000 per year. If you take Tesla's record Q1 production from Giga Berlin of 61,000 and keep that record rate throughout the year, that would still only be 244,000 vehicles from Giga Berlin for the year, which would work out to a 65% factory utilization rate. And now in this case, I actually think it's reasonable for Tesla to continually exceed that record of 61,000 units a quarter throughout the remaining 3 quarters of the year. But even if they do that, they will still be below their desired target factory utilization rate. Ordinarily, automakers aim for about 85% factory utilization to maximize profits, and just doing the math here, that would work out to about 80,000 units per quarter from Giga Berlin to hit that 85% target. So yes, on one hand, it's awesome that Giga Berlin is expanding production. Demand seems to be increasing across the EU. Those are awesome things. But it's simultaneously true that Giga Berlin still has meaningful work to do to get the factory utilization rate where they want it. And for all of 2025, Andre Thierry himself said Giga Berlin produced in the neighborhood of 200,000 vehicles, well short of the installed capacity. And as I said weeks ago, I think Tesla will have a very strong Q2 for deliveries, part of that backlog from Q1. And very clearly, supervised FSD is starting to drive incremental volume. And so Tesla can highlight all of these different regions where they're seeing improved demand, but until that results in annual sales finally increasing year over year and doing so in a meaningful way, it's just not going to have the Tesla stock impact that I think a lot of people are expecting it to have. And shifting the focus to where all eyes are, unsupervised autonomy, Lars came out of nowhere and replied to Farzad saying no. And Farzad's question was, hey guys, can you clarify if the 2500 limit for AVs applies to Cybercab or not? So I'll take that from Lars to confirm what we've already said to be true. The Cybercab is not subject to the 2500 unit annual cap. So personally, I think this was already a settled matter weeks ago, but there you go, direct from Lars. Which means yes, legally, Tesla can now deploy the Cybercab in any volumes it sees fit. But Elon literally said on the call that it won't make sense for Tesla to scale unsupervised robotaxis at large scale until they make all of these software architectural improvements that they have in the pipeline, primarily with version 15. And listen, I could spend the next 10 minutes running numbers about what Elon means by large scale. What does he mean that it won't be a material revenue contributor until next year? I mean, what is material in Elon's eyes? $100 million? $1 billion? Ultimately, I can make a guess like anybody else, but that's all that it is. But again, I don't care how anybody tries to spin it or how they try to cope with this reality, but we went from Elon saying that 50% of the United States would be covered with robotaxis to Elon saying, I think we're going to want to finish writing that software, validate it, and release it before going to large-scale unsupervised FSD. But even he clarified, depending on what large-scale means. So if you take Elon at his word, which I am admitting I'm personally struggling to do right now, this commentary is simply a big downshift in the expectations for the robotaxi rollout this year. You cannot sugarcoat it. And I'll be honest with you guys, there's like 5% of me that's thinking in the back of my head, Elon is trying to send the share price down one more time because they're gonna start scaling later this year. He knows the stock price is going to run up and he wants to give Tesla shareholders one more buy the dip opportunity. So I'm not immune to all of those Elon is sandbagging thought patterns. Plus, when you look at the performance of 14.3.2 that's now rolling out, everybody seems to have glowing reviews of how stellar it is. And the Tesla team said it's not really a safety problem, it's more of a convenience, an infinite loop, a navigation, and an over-hesitancy problem for why they're not scaling. And I think some people get even more frustrated because the reality is Tesla probably could scale what it has now and it would still be very safe. It's just they would have to deal with more customers being stuck in those infinite loops or being stuck in cars that are sitting at a red light unnecessarily. So again, on one hand, I love that Tesla's being cautious and patient because they want the customer experience to be good. But on the other hand, if it's a fact that it's not a safety problem, meaning very clearly they have no concerns about safety, then why wouldn't they scale and just take some of that backlash for the convenience things that aren't ironed out yet? Because despite those limitations, if the safety is that good as they're saying, wouldn't it make sense to start saving more lives and taking more drivers out of the equation? And guys, I warned you this video was going to be a bit different. I hope me sharing more of my thought patterns and my thought process is somehow valuable to even a few of you. I know we're not very data heavy today, but for whatever reason, I'm just hoping that my transparency into how I'm thinking about all of this can maybe encourage some of you, help you feel like you're not alone as you try to work through some of these things. And if you missed it, Elon said right here, I think a lot of what limits wider deployment of robotaxi are actually not safety issues, but convenience issues. But later he said, I do think it would not be right for us to go to very large scale unsupervised FSD when we know that there are software improvements in the pipeline that would improve safety. But of course, to some degree, there will always be improvements in the pipeline that are improving safety because that safety is not an end destination, it's a scale. It's a gradient. So part of me just feels like Tesla can't come out and say, well, it's not safe enough to scale yet, because then current riders might start to think, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't use the service. And I don't know, maybe I'm just being too analytical here and I'm having one of those days, but on one hand, they say it's not safety that's the problem, but then a few lines later, Elon's saying, well, we're not going to scale because we have things that are going to make it safer. So in my head, I'm just thinking, well, which is it? And with these new expectations, I think it's now safe to say that Tesla hitting that 10 billion miles driven on supervised FSD, the counter, that's pretty clearly not going to have the implications I think some of us were hoping that it might. And at this pace, that 10 billion number is going to be hit in early May. But for me, at this point, I'm just removing that number as a milestone altogether. And now Tesla did say that the Cybercab would begin to start replacing the Model Y as a robotaxi. And as we learned on the call, the Cybercab has officially started production, and today Joe Tetmeyer showed some images of the new glossy Cybercab, the actual production version with no wheel or pedals. Now, to be clear, just because these are official production versions doesn't mean that they're immediately going to be deployed onto the network. Now, they might, but they also might end up in testing for weeks to come. And I have to say, it's almost good that Elon poured cold water on the call on the scaling of unsupervised for this year, because had he not done that, I think the expectations right now would be through the roof. Given that Cybercab is finally officially not subject to the 2,500 unit cap, it's now officially in production without a wheel and pedals. The incident data from NHTSA is still incredibly strong, and all the early reviews of 14.3.2 are stellar. So I think most of us at this point would have been expecting one of those light switch moments, not for customer cars, but at least for the robotaxi network. So from that perspective, I'm very thankful that Elon said that, because many of us can now come back down to earth a little bit, and if they do start to scale faster than we think, then that's a surprise to the upside. And now for my own expectations, which I said earlier, I'm still working through here, but in this moment, if Tesla can be in 10 cities by the end of this year with between 50 and 100 unsupervised vehicles in each city, for me, given everything we have to go on, I think that's a reasonable baseline expectation. And that would be somewhere between 500 and 1,000 unsupervised vehicles operating in those cities. For argument's sake, I'm just leaving out those supervised vehicles in the Bay Area for now. And obviously, it's more likely that some cities have more than others. Maybe one has 200 unsupervised, whereas a newer city only has 5 or 10. But of course, the numbers I gave there were just averages from my expectations. Now, when it comes to supervised FSD, I put this chart together that shows in Q1, Tesla added 180,000 FSD subscriptions, which by far was the best quarter ever since Tesla started reporting this metric. And it was up 16% quarter over quarter. So Tesla now has 1.28 million active FSD subscriptions, both outright purchases and monthly. Vaibhav said the churn rate for FSD was going down and customers were using FSD a lot more. So all encouraging signs, and a big part of the reason Tesla was able to deliver such strong auto gross margins ex credits. And I know that Elon said he's guessing they can start delivering unsupervised FSD to customer cars sometime in Q4 this year. But he shared all those qualifiers about the weather and the edge cases in certain cities, and how Tesla's going to have to somehow validate that it's safe to release unsupervised city by city or geography by geography. And for me, the only way they can actually do that is if it's a place where they've already launched their robotaxi service. So I would not be surprised to see Tesla launch unsupervised FSD to customers in markets where robotaxi is already operating. I just don't see any other way for Tesla to truly validate all of these other geographies to the point where they're comfortable having all those customer cars in that geography run unsupervised. And I know a lot of people have been waiting for that light switch moment this year, but by the tone of things, it sounds like that's not going to happen. But the differentiator is, even if we had this federal level framework for autonomous vehicles, I still don't think Tesla would have that light switch moment based on what they just said. So I'm expecting for this year, we're going to be stuck in this city by city slog, just like Waymo has been doing. And hopefully next year with version 15 and this AI 4.1 or 4 plus that Tesla's now talking about, that could start to change if we do see a federal framework for AVs. But clearly, Tesla is still developing the confidence it needs with the system to have this running at scale. And it's not good news, but at least we got the news that yes, officially all Hardware 3 cars will need a path to be upgraded to AI4 or beyond to achieve unsupervised. My guess is it would cost somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 to do this upgrade, both for the computer and all of the cameras, because you would need both. But that or a discounted trade-in will be options, so finally there's a clear path forward for the Hardware 3 gang. And before any of that, Ashok said that V14 Lite should roll out to Hardware 3 before the end of June. And as expected, Elon did say eventually AI5 will make it into Tesla vehicles, because at some point AI4 will just be too old. But it sounds like that won't happen for a few years, because now Tesla has this AI4 Plus set to enter production next year that's going to have double the memory bandwidth. And not only that, but a roughly 10% increase in the TOPS, trillions of operations per second, or the compute power. So for me, this one was quite encouraging to hear, because we just talked last week about how Tesla will likely adjust the memory on these chips, whether AI 5, 6, or beyond, for different end-use applications, whether in a data center or in a vehicle or in Optimus. So the tape out for that middle portion, the SoC, the system on chip, that gets locked into place, but Tesla still has all of that flexibility with the different memory types and sizing on the sides. And it sounds like that's exactly what Tesla's going to do, not even waiting for AI5, but with AI4. And shifting to Tesla's cumulative paid robotaxi miles, currently sitting at about 1.7 million miles as of March. Just to add a bit of context here so we can all understand why there are so many people that still adamantly argue that Waymo's so far ahead. Now obviously I'm not one of those people, but they just announced over 200 million fully autonomous miles. And that was February this year. But I'm sharing that because I thought this data was pretty interesting. This is the SGO from NHTSA for robotaxi incidents. It's broken down by provider, and Waymo has 1,790 incidents since it started. If you take Tesla's paid robotaxi miles of 1.7 million divided by the 15 incidents since launch, that works out to 113,000 miles per incident. Then if you take Waymo's paid miles to date, which is now higher than 200 million, but just to be safe, divide that by their number of incidents since launch, that works out to 111,000 miles per incident. And again, this data is flawed because this includes incidents where Tesla and Waymo were not at fault. But the number of paid miles per incident is actually incredibly close. If you've been following along the past few weeks, you'll remember Elon started talking and making some comments that there might be a cyber SUV coming, or something that would solve the problem of having 3 child seats in the back row. And he outright said that something along those lines was coming. But when asked about a possible new family vehicle or a compact vehicle, he said the Cybercab was the compact, the Cybercab will be most of production over the long term. The only driving vehicle from here going forward is going to be the Roadster, but the rest of the fleet over time will be autonomy first. And that ultimately Tesla will just have different sizes of these autonomous vehicles. So my understanding was he effectively poured a cold water on any type of cyber SUV with a steering wheel, or any type of compact vehicle that's not the Cybercab with a steering wheel that's more affordable. Now, I thought those were a long shot anytime in the next year or two anyways, but I'm not sure why he would have said those things, which will clearly get people's hopes up, to then a few weeks later basically saying it's not going to happen. At least not anytime soon. The Roadster debut clearly not going to happen in April. Now it might happen in May, but he didn't sound overly confident due to the testing that's still required. And they said they now have this evolved vehicle sales strategy where FSD is the product and the vehicle is actually just the delivery mechanism, which is cool on the surface, but have any of you actually seen that out in practice? And sure, maybe it's a new initiative that they've just started in different geographies around the world, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about that strategy and exactly what they're going to do, because in my humble opinion, the official Tesla X account posting things about it is not an evolved vehicle sales strategy. And again, they could certainly be doing things around the world I'm not aware of, and please correct me if that's the case. When I first saw the energy gross margins, I was like, wow, that's incredible. It was a down quarter for deliveries, yet a brand new record, almost 40% from a gross margin perspective. But on the call, we learned that number is likely not sustainable. That was driven by a one-off related to tariffs, and Tesla is still expecting more competition and pricing pressure and negative impacts from tariffs going forward. Because to date, primarily most of those battery cells are still coming from China. And yes, that's in the process of changing, but that's going to take time. One point I have strong conviction with is the CapEx spend. It's been getting a lot of attention because Tesla just now clarified that the remaining 3 quarters this year will go negative from a free cash flow perspective. But months ago, when we learned that Tesla was going to spend $20 billion this year, we said, guess what? Free cash flow is probably going to go negative at some point this year. And this is really the crux of everything. This is the biggest signal we have. Tesla and Elon are saying, we see all of these opportunities. They're here right now. It's time to spend more than we've ever spent. And we're going to juggle all of these different things at one time. And really, no other companies are doing as much vertical integration in these different industries as Tesla, all at the same time. But it's also true that making all of these decisions and doing it this way is going to kick the can down the road for profitability. And of course, it will take time for all of these things to come to fruition. So I couldn't care less about Tesla going negative from a free cash flow perspective because I know why they're doing it and they still have plenty of cash on the balance sheet to fund it. Especially now that we learned SpaceX is going to be paying for the early part of the actual Terafab, and Tesla will seemingly only focus on about a $3 billion outlay for the research fab at Giga Texas. But once again, this brings far more questions than answers because further than that, it sounded like Elon doesn't even know how they're going to handle it from there. And based on Elon's tone that he has to get everything approved by both boards to make sure all the shareholders are accounted for, I certainly still think things are trending toward an eventual merger, just not anytime soon. And on Optimus, I know some are encouraged that Elon said the start of production might be late July or into August. But then Elon went on to explain how it's going to take time for Tesla to end Model S and X production in May, and then tear down those production lines and replace them with the Optimus production lines. And based on his explanation, it sounds like usually that timeline could be in the neighborhood of 6 months, and anything faster than that would be like world-class speed. And yes, of course, Tesla's capable of doing that, but is expecting that to be the baseline outcome wise? I'm not so sure. And while entering start of production is a milestone worth celebrating, just like the Cybercab, there's a big difference between that and when they're actually deployed to the robotaxi network or deployed to the factory or further deployed to customers outside of Tesla. And I think by this point, from a market perspective, that's really what they're waiting for. Having Optimus in the factory doing menial tasks isn't really going to move the needle that much. It's not going to start saving millions of dollars overnight. Now, yes, it'll be cool for us to watch it and understand what's going on and to see it making progress. But zooming out from an investment perspective, which is what many people are waiting for Catalyst for, I'm just not sure that the start of production is going to be the catalyst that many think it will. So I've always thought a more tangible catalyst will be when Optimus is useful outside of Tesla, and Elon said hopefully sometime next year. And guys, look, I know that this video is going to come off as me being negative or overly pessimistic, but the truth is, again, I'm just sharing how I'm genuinely feeling, what I'm actually expecting, and doing so with the hopes that some others of you can also have more grounded expectations and not constantly be hoping for this major breakthrough that's going to be a little further away than we're expecting. Now, all of that to say, none of this at all takes away from my enjoyment of getting to do this, of again, researching the new technologies and understanding and thinking about the future that Tesla's building and getting to celebrate these little milestones along the way. I'm just saying, if you're coming at it from an investment perspective, and less so from the perspective of a fan or someone trying to educate themselves, then I just hope you're able to recalibrate going from here. But when it comes to Optimus, again, again, I was actually somewhat grateful because I just said what earlier this week, Elon, if you're not confident about your timelines or production numbers, then feel free to not share one. And that's exactly what he did with Optimus. He basically said, I can't tell you how many Optimi we're going to make this year because it's impossible to predict. So clearly now we know that Elon watches Electrified. So Elon, how you doing? Love you, brother. Keep it up. But seriously, I think we live in a time where humility should be celebrated. If you don't know, it's okay. Just say you don't know. I genuinely would rather have that than him trying to throw out numbers out there that don't get met and then becomes fodder for Tesla Q. Or worse, a catalyst for disillusionment for Tesla fans. And just real quick, some encouraging news with 14.3.2 now rolling out. Everybody seems to be saying that actually Smart Summon is actually materially improved. The phone connection's better, response time's better, parking lot handling's better, navigating pedestrians and cars, it's all better. And part of that's because they said with 14.3.2 we unified the model between actually Smart Summon, FSD, and Robotaxi for more capable and reliable behavior. And Dirty Tesla said the car immediately responds to your button press even right after stopping the last session, which it would have a big delay on in the past. AI Driver said it's still limited to 6 miles an hour, but wow, Summon has definitely improved. It's now properly signaling and pulling over out of the flow of traffic before stopping, just like Robotaxi. Activation is also noticeably faster. Nice progress. And in the 10Q, Tesla said April of this year, the company entered into an agreement to acquire an AI hardware company for up to $2 billion, of which about $1.8 billion is subject to certain service conditions and or performance milestones. This dependent on successful deployment of the company's technology. And there's at least a chance that this is the acquisition. Recently, we talked about how Anant Nivarti was rejoining Tesla to lead silicon engineering. This after he just left Tesla in December to build silicon from first principles for scalable AI hardware. That at an early stage stealth startup. Nivarti spent 8 years as the director and principal of engineering at Tesla working on Dojo. And here's his LinkedIn. Left Tesla December last year. Worked at this silicon design at an early stage startup, specifically for scalable AI hardware, and now April, he's back at Tesla, so maybe his company was acquired. And to close this one out, I just want to be honest again, I really don't want to upload this video because a big part of me is still trying to process where I'm landing myself based on all of these new expectations and what we just learned. But what I want to be abundantly clear is that for me, personally, not a single thing has changed from a long-term perspective. I'm still all in Tesla from a public stock perspective. None of that is changing. I'm still acquiring and I'm still just as excited about the company as I've ever been, arguably more so. It is just that in the short term, in the coming weeks and months, I'll admit, I let my expectations get further along than where Tesla is ready to execute. And sure, I could point the finger at Elon to some degree, but ultimately I always point the finger at myself. It is my fault for letting my expectations get ahead of me. I've followed Elon long enough to know that not everything he says can be taken at face value. And as always, the data and the circumstances and what the technology enables are ever evolving daily. So I feel like I'm only making this video as a hopefully cathartic experience for a few of you that might be in a similar boat. Like, you love the company and you know they're going to succeed in the long run, but on the way there, they're certainly tripping in ways they don't need to, and they're going slower than a lot of us want them to, and we know it's for good reason, but this whole process would be easier if they themselves toned down their expectations along the way. They clearly could have communicated better, especially to the early adopters over the years, so all of the things you guys already know. But it really is just a fact that I don't think there's ever been a company that has been trying to execute with so many different emerging new frontier technologies at the same time. And I just think for anybody to come out and say, this is going to happen then, we're going to hit that number on this date, it's just the height of hubris. Elon is starting to realize it, and today I myself am absolutely realizing it. And so in this social media culture, there's always this unspoken pressure to have the right answer, to have the right take, or to predict something before it happens. Or people will take more traditional investing metrics and try to apply them to Tesla, which is this brand new entity, and they'll try to argue, see, this is why Tesla should be valued at X or Y. But now more than ever, to a large degree, that's an impossibility. It cannot be done. There's simply too many moving parts in too many new industries with too much uncertainty. It just seems like right now, this year is not going to be the year that so many people are waiting for. The breakouts, the scaling, the true opening of the floodgates that we're all anticipating. But like I said, I've never been more sure that that time is coming. I just can't pinpoint it precisely right now. But if you can stay patient for another 3 to 5 years to let all of this that Tesla has cooking finally develop, then I'm quite confident there will be a lot of very happy campers. So again, I just wanted to say thank you for bearing with me for today's episode as I work to process my own thoughts. And ultimately, I just want to be a voice that reminds you it's okay to have micro disappointments with Tesla along the way. It's just the reality that we're living in a timeline with plenty of uncertainty, but what Tesla is doing is just so unprecedented beyond anything we've ever seen. We need to understand that timelines are going to be changed and ultimately missed. And my hope is at the end of the day, we can all help each other to 1, take accountability for ourselves where it's warranted, and to 2, point the finger at Tesla when it's warranted. But at this point, it's time for me to cut myself off. So don't forget, check out 3W if you're interested. All the links below. Thanks as always for supporting the channel. Hope you all have a wonderful day, and a huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters.